Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing? Are you enjoying this amazing conference? Yes, that's great. It's wonderful to see such a great big turnout. It reminds me of my MTV days, especially the music before. Just a small correction. Of course, my book is called From MTV to Mecca, not from Mecca to MTV. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here now. But never mind. I can tell you one thing. Let's start in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. If someone had told me at the height of my MTV career in '92 that one day I would be a practicing Muslim and standing in front of all of you to tell my tale, I would have said to them they must be absolutely mad, because I was living a life very far from religion, let alone Islam. I was working in an environment, that obviously was filled with lights, glamour, action, stars, all sorts of things, but not exactly spirituality. But God works in mysterious ways, and He knows what He's doing. So from a life of hedonism and materialism, I was guided to find contentment and inner peace by surrendering to God in Islam. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Takbir. Before I reverted 15 years ago, you can say I had everything a normal Western teenager may dream of. After my education as a radio journalist in Germany, I applied for a job advert with MTV Europe, and I got the job, which meant I had to move to London, which is what I wanted to do, because previously I was an exchange student in the US for 1 year, and I thought I knew English, but I was struggling a little bit in London because of all the accents and everything. It took quite a while to get used to it. But anyway, I became the first German presenter on MTV, and for over 7 years interviewed rock stars for a living. Enjoyed red carpet treatment wherever we went with our little camera team. I went to a lot of VIP parties and often had 2-3 invites a night. I interviewed the Rolling Stones, went on the road with Prince, met Robbie Williams, and hung out with Elizabeth Hurley, all famous people during my heydays. I don't know if any one of you still knows these people, but you were very, very famous, a bit like Lady Gaga and so on nowadays. Anyway, once I went on stage in front of not 8,000 people, but 70,000 people. There was a sea of people and everybody screaming and clapping, and it felt like floating on a cloud of energy. But then when I went back to my hotel room, with the noise still ringing in my ears, I felt lonely. And somehow I had to come down from this rush of energy, and I often was quite unhappy and not really satisfied, despite having everything, you can say, materially, externally. But something was missing, and I did not know what it was. I thought perhaps it was a partner, a soulmate. But in retrospect, no human being could have filled that inner void. Only the divine, and that was not part of my life at the time. Eventually, I experienced a deep crisis. I was rushing from one show to the next, always having to perform, always having to be perfect, and I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. And on my way to Belgium to host yet another show, I was so low, I thought to myself, if the plane was to crash, I couldn't care less. And it was at this time of dissatisfaction that I was introduced to Islam, not by a long-bearded imam who perhaps rammed religious rulings down my throat, no, by a handsome sports star, Imran Khan. And I don't know if you know Imran Khan here in America. He was the captain of a cricket team in Pakistan, and he is now running for prime minister also in Pakistan. Anyway, so he talked about philosophy, and I always liked philosophy, and he talked about Islamic philosophy. And in fact, just when I met him, he had just won the World Cup for Pakistan, which had completely passed me by because being German, I wasn't raised with cricket, so I had no idea who he was. Anyway, he challenged me about the ethical and moral values, you can say. He asked me, for example, what was the purpose of life? What is the purpose of our life? This is one question each and every one of us needs to ask themselves. Why are you here on this earth? What is your contribution going to be? You know, what is it all about? And I simply didn't have an answer. I hadn't thought about it at the time. So anyway, he asked me out, and the first time I turned up to go out with a few friends, I was wearing a mini dress. And we were going out with a few Pakistanis and Indians, and he asked me if I wouldn't mind keeping on my coat all evening, because in his culture, women and men don't show flesh. So, okay, I did that. And, you know, it was a little bit odd, but then when I started thinking about it, it actually made sense. Why should a woman, you know, with her skin, showing her skin, get places in life? Even in business nowadays, I'm always surprised why women often show cleavage and wear mini dresses, whereas men always wear suits. I mean, how degrading it is for a woman having to always show her assets. You know, in advertisements, women advertising half naked any kind of product, from perfume to cigarettes to car tires or whatever it is. That actually is degrading. So when I started thinking about it, that was actually one of the first things I sort of understood and began to change in my own life while I was still interviewing rock stars on MTV. My skirts became longer and cleavage higher. Anyway, so what touched me actually most about Imran wasn't his famous friends, but it was how he was going to build. He was actually in the process of building a cancer hospital where the poor people would be treated for free in Lahore because they didn't have any cancer hospitals at all. And he said to me, believe in God and do good deeds. Just like our previous speaker was saying, that is the essence of being a Muslim. And I quite liked that. Imran also talked a lot about spirituality. The fact that we are made of mind, body and soul, and our soul needs nourishment like the body. And until then I hadn't even noticed I had a soul.